Let's kick off the session with a keynote speech from Rick Calber. Rick is CEO of Fortegra, and he's going to explain why championing a diversity of thought and at the same time investing in digital talent will be crucial for the success and the evolution of the industry in the years to come. Rick has also very gamely agreed to stay so that he can handle any questions if there's anything that you want to put to him. So please, can you give Rick Calber a very big, huge welcome for that keynote address. The floor is all yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Ready.
Easy, easy. You haven't heard me say a word yet, and I stand between you and the bar. So, you know, it's kind of interesting. First, I have really good news for you. I'm not going to give you the commercial about Fortegra, I promise. All you need to know is we're a specialty insurer. That's all you really need to know. I will give you some idea of size. When I joined the company in 2003, it was a small company, about 140 million of gross written premium. This year, well, I can't even talk about this year, sorry. Last year, 2.2 billion, roughly. Give or take, 100 million here, 100 million there. So, I'm here to talk about people, but I'd like to start by talking about the innovation component of this. All of you are in the business of innovation and technology, and I'm in the business of pricing and underwriting risk. And you are doing unbelievable things to help our industry. And I will date myself a bit here. I was telling someone earlier, when I first started practicing law, we used IBM Selectric typewriters. I don't think many of you even know what whiteout is. I do. I remember when plain paper faxes were a big deal. You know, we've come a long way, and I think about where we are today, and it's monumental. I think about the tremendous advances in technology that have reshaped humankind, and I'm not trying to overstate this, but one of them, fire, the internal combustion engine, the wheel, the telephone, which is shown here, and then the microchip. And think what the microchip has done for us. Now, it hasn't done a lot for the insurance industry just yet, because we're just getting there. And I thought this was pretty funny that you want to talk about this, insurance and innovation, because insurance is going kicking and screaming. It's like a group of 2-year-olds, and you're trying to foster us and move us forward, which God bless you. I'm not sure how you do that. So I look at this problem and dilemma that we're facing, and I look at technology really in 3 buckets. You have distribution, which is InsurTech today. You know, InsurTech is largely around distribution and the ease of distribution. Then there's augmented underwriting, augmented claims, augmented financial management. That's a big ticket item in the near term, in the future, with artificial intelligence, machine learning, predictive analytics. It's an enormous opportunity for those of us who are bearing risk to advance our businesses. We are investing at Fortegra tens of millions of dollars, not only this year, but for the foreseeable future in just such technologies. And then there's third-party services. Everywhere I look, every show I go to, every conference I'm invited to, one after another is coming forward with new technologies to make claims faster, more accurate, to help the underwriting processes, to streamline our operations and make risk a little more palatable for us. So that's kind of how we bucket them within Fortegra. But all of this happening, the business is still really simple. It's about capital, technology, and people. Still only 3 elements to it: capital, technology, and people. Capital's a commodity. It's whatever I want to pay for it. It's no big deal. And today, with all the capital available to us, it is not a problem. Whether it's industry-linked securities, insurance-linked securities, whether it's facultative reinsurance, treaty-based reinsurance, whether it's alternative types of bonds, it does not matter. We have plenty of capital. Technology, Reasonable minds could differ as to whether it's a commodity or not. I could see either argument, really. I don't think it is, but reasonable minds could differ. But the linchpin to make all of this work is people. And people are the key to this business. And I know for technologists that's hard for you to hear, but it's still a relationship business at its heart. And we don't see that changing meaningfully. Our InsurTech friends have done a lot to make the process a lot more streamlined, but it's still a relationship-driven business. So we'll see where that goes. But I do have some bad news for you. And this is the dilemma, and it is our number one risk in Fortegra. Absolutely, no question about it, and I'm not alone. People is a big problem. Acquisition of talent is a big challenge. Why? Well, number one, we've done a piss poor job, a terrible job of communicating the career opportunities to younger people. Terrible. Well, how do they see the insurance industry? They see it like the Fuller Brush salespeople. That's probably not great for us when we're competing against Google, we're competing against Netflix, we're competing all these hip and cool careers, and here we are, we're the insurance business. Who the hell wants to go into that? I know if you had asked me in 1986 when I graduated from law school, I'd say, absolutely not, no way. And some few years later, here I am. Then you have, to make things worse, we have, and these are different pundits estimate this, but over the next few years, we're going to lose 400,000 people out of the insurance industry through retirement and going into other industries as well. We don't have replacements. Just trust me on this one. We do not have them. And frankly, all of you are hurting us because they're going to your hip and cool businesses, not mine, okay? So we have a complex problem that we have to solve. And what I'm going to talk a little bit about is how we're dealing with it at Fortegra. And trust me, we don't have it all right. We do some things pretty well, but we're a duck on the water. It might look smooth on the top, but those little legs underneath the water are going like crazy. And we make as many mistakes as we do get advances and improvements in how we manage people, how we acquire them, how we retain them, how we enhance their opportunities within the organization. So let me start with an obvious one, but it's worth 2 minutes of our time. I think at Fortegra, culture matters. Fortegra is not for everyone. It's just not. And I tell people that when they come on job interviews. Our culture is kind of unique. Just like all of your companies, you have a unique culture, just like every family does. But it does matter. And it matters because it's the connective tissue between you and the employee. Now, we're going to talk a little bit more about this, but what we have found is we needed to do a better job of talking about our culture and communicating what our culture is and why they should care. So let's just talk about this. There's a fellow out there, he lectures often, a very bright man, Simon Sinek, and he created this thing called the Golden Circle. And he talks about this from a marketing perspective. And one of the points he makes is people don't buy what you sell, they buy what you believe. And I started listening to this fellow, and I said, he's got a point here, but the product we're selling is a career. And I have to tell them what I believe in. So let me tell you what we believe in Fortegra. We believe in a meritocracy. Absolutely, no doubt about it. I don't care what school you went to. I don't care what church you go to. I don't care who you worship. I don't care what you do before 8 in the morning and after 5 o'clock at night or on the weekends. I care what you do from 8 to 5. And that is it. That is the only thing that is going to change your career trajectory is you and your effort and your contribution. That's it. But it's just as important in being the guardrails when you have to make tough decisions. Culture matters when you have to make tough decisions. And these folks over here work at Fortegra, and they've heard me say this, but when we have to make a tough call, and I went to law school, so I'm almost ashamed to say this, it may be legal, but it may not be right. So we have a simple rule at our company. Assume you're going before a judge, and that judge happens to be your mother. And you have to tell her the facts of this case. I asked the team very simply, is she going to give you the stink eye, or is she going to give you the big thumbs up? And if the answer is the stink eye, we don't do it. It's that simple. But that's culture. That's what culture is all about. It's our ethos. It's why we exist as an organization. And as Simon Sinek said, it's not profit, that's the result. That's not why people get up every single morning and come to work at Fortegra. And if you ask them, they will tell you. They get up and come to work at Fortegra for one reason and one reason only, because they believe they can help. As a risk taker, what we are doing is allowing them to offload an exposure to us for a premium, and it's an exposure they don't want to self-insure. And we serve all different socioeconomic groups, from the very wealthy to the very poor, those who are marginally bankable. So we don't really care. And it's all about people, because the culture is the people. That's the recipe. Yeah, I can stand up there and do all this talking all day long. But if I don't connect with you, and if I don't connect with you, and you don't understand what we expect of you, and what our ethos is and will be going forward, you can't serve those people that you've promised to serve. So then we get down to a pretty simple process. So Fortegra's not for everybody. We believe in our culture. So how do we attract the people? How do we retain them? And then how do we enhance their experience? Because as you know, you have to hire them and then you train them. The worst thing is then they leave. Then you start all over again. That's the worst thing. And as you know, we're losing 400,000 people. So you take 4 Michigan football stadiums, you fill them up, and they're all leaving. There's a hell of a lot more people leaving than are coming in. So we have a meaningful problem. So what do we do at Fortegra? What do we look for? I played college sports, and I had a college coach, and in 1980, we're getting ready for the season, and we were pretty good. We were expected to be a top 20 team, and we were looking at the freshmen who were going to join us in the spring, and I said, I'm not sure these are the best players. And he looks at me, and my coach was a diminutive fellow. You can imagine I'm almost 6'5", and he's 5'7", soaking wet, weighed 130 pounds. And he said to me, we're not looking for the best players. We're looking for the right players. Now that's also a line from Miracle. Herb Brooks said the very same thing, but I think it's a common statement by coaches. And what he was really saying to me was, this team has to operate as a team. And while they may be better, they may not be best for this group to perform optimally. So what are we looking for? We're looking for the right people. So what does that look like? I can tell you with this story. Several years ago, we hired a young woman to join our LDP class, which is Leadership Development Program. A lot of big employers have them. Really no great big deal. And she came to us. She was first generation. She was Bosnian. Her parents spoke no English. She had worked her way through college, all the way. Full-time employee at a bank and working her way through college and going to college. And that's very impressive in and of itself. This young lady came into our LDP program, and did her normal rotations in HR, and then went into finance, and then accounting and compliance, and finally ends up in treasury. And she did a magnificent job, and you would expect as much because she was in banking. Here's where it gets really interesting. We decided to go out and raise some money, $125 million of bonds, so the investment bankers are there, and so they're down doing their diligence. We're all sitting around the table, and as investment bankers, or do we have any investment bankers here? I don't want to insult them because they may be working for us. So the investment bankers are there. As you can imagine, in New York, investment bankers are pretty full of themselves, and they have no problem with condescension. That's part of their shtick. So long story short, they start digging into the specific details about our invested assets, and the dripping condescension. You just want to reach over and smack the guy. And this young woman never blinked, never paused. She went equity by equity by equity, by bond, by bond, by bond, by treasury or instrument, and she knew them backwards and forwards. At that moment, I knew who our treasurer was. That's the kind of people we look for. We find common denominators, always. It has nothing to do with what school you went to. We've hired people from Yale and Princeton. Absolute disaster. I'm not knocking the Yaleys. God bless the Yaleys. Or, you know, those people play for the Princeton Tigers. It's just we haven't had great success. The fact that you have these big degrees does not mean you're going to be successful, and that plays out over and over again in Fortegra. But what we do find is some common denominators that work for us. If they've worked through school, absolutely a great marker. If they've come from big families, for our culture, it's the best. Big families work their way through school. I'll give you another example of just this very point and why I did. There's one person I didn't interview but hired him on the spot. Never interviewed him. This young man went to Florida State University, was studying to be an actuary. And as his senior year had already passed 2 of his exams. He was working full-time at Starbucks. Good marker, right? Great marker. He came from a family of 7 children. His father passed away at an earlier age. His mother was a librarian and raised 7 children. He was boy number 2 of 7. I don't know the sexes of the other children. I can't tell you that. I don't think it's all that relevant. But here's what happened. We invite him to come to Jacksonville to interview for an LDP position. This young man gets on a bus at 6 o'clock in the morning, a Greyhound bus, and comes to Jacksonville, gets in a cab and comes to our office. And somebody tells me this, that this kid is upstairs, and he had and all the LDP candidates are in the room, and we're talking to them, and I pulled the HR head out, and I said, I don't need to know anymore. I need to know nothing else about this young man. He will be the next leadership of our actuarial department. No doubt about it. He is likely the next chief executive officer of the company at some point in time. He's only 32. Get the right people, not the best people. The right people matter. Here's another thing, is once you get them, and we're talking about innovation, right, and all the wonderful technology tools you have, but they don't work without people. So once you get them, and once you find a really good one like Kyle or Maida, we don't want them going anywhere. And what we found is one of the key markers of whether or not they'll leave is, do they feel engaged? Do they feel like they're part of the organization? Now, one of the ways we do that, and I'm going to skip over 1 or 2 here because I want to get to one that's the most important. We have kicked reviews right the hell out of our office. I hate them. I've hated them from day one. Our job is not to tell you you're terrific because you come to work on time, you get your work done on time, and you leave on time. Whoop-de-doo, that's what the hell I'm paying you to do. You expect more from me than that. And I would hope you would expect more from me. The people that report directly to me, they get 7, 8-page reviews. They aren't reviews. They're assessments of what they need to do to continue in their development and to continue to help the company off into the future. So we changed. We moved to a coaching scenario. Our job is to coach people. So what's a coach's job? To make you better. And that's a huge responsibility for the senior leadership. Coaching requires you to take the time and the effort and the energy to understand what their job is, what their role is, what their skill set looks like, where the gaps are, and then build a plan to fill those gaps. That's a great coach. That's a wonderful coach. And if you want engagement, start coaching your people rather than reviewing them. Any jackass can stand up here and say, here's your 3% raise, congratulations. Most people worth their salt, what they want to know is, how do I improve my lot in life? How do I move ahead in this company? Please show me the way. We found that this is an important part. It's a very important part. And I can't tell you the overwhelming response when we said we're doing away with reviews. Other than giving away lunches post-COVID, it probably was the biggest thing we've done in a long, long time. So here you can read, how we're doing. People love us. Yeah. Got it. So enhancing, and I'm running out of time, so I'm going to talk quickly. So enhancing their experience. This is something I spend a lot of time talking about at the company. And it can be simple things. Like, let me take COVID, for example. At COVID, we're an essential service, right? We have to pay claims. Nobody cared that there was this virus. They wanted their claims paid. And obviously, that's our job. We pay claims. So I made the decision that we would not work from home. Pretty controversial decision at the time, but fortunately we're in Florida, so probably not all that controversial. But nonetheless, made that decision. We did send some people home who were immunocompromised. Here's what we learned. Most people wanted to be at work. Those that were home were begging to come back. We did do some things. First thing we did was we hired a bunch of people to come in and clean. They cleaned all the time. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, we were just cleaning everything. Somebody put a cup down, somebody lifted it up, cleaned it off. I'm overstating it, of course, but we wanted them to be comfortable that we were doing everything possible to make their space, their experience as safe as possible. But you would not believe what was the biggest thing that we did, the most successful thing we did during COVID. And it was really not all that remarkable. We wanted to eliminate one variable. Since we had to bring everybody in the office, what's the big variable? Well, they leave at lunchtime. While they're at work, we know it's kind of contained and safe, and we know what's being done. We're recycling the air, and we've got all this good stuff going on. But then they leave at lunch. And who are they interfacing with at lunch? And they're waiting in line at McDonald's or this or that. Because remember, it's Florida, so we're open. I know it's unusual to you folks from New York, but yes, we were open in Florida. So here's the thing. We brought lunch in for everybody, every day. Now, this was a little tricky because some vendors were not open for business. But every day we brought lunch in. And here's the thing about enhancing the experience. You know what the message was? We care. It was that simple. We care about you. It's that simple. And our retention rates have gone through the roof. Most importantly, for all of us who like profit, our productivity is up about 24%. Productivity is up 24% with the same people just by bringing in lunch. Are you kidding me? I'll do that. What, can I bring you breakfast? Maybe I'll get to 48. So You know, there are some easy things you can do. We've had some success doing these. I can look, if you want to talk about failures, I got them all day long. But you know, the company has done pretty well by sticking to some pretty basic rules, pretty basic fundamentals. Find the right people, engage them, and give them a fair opportunity to build their careers. It's pretty simple stuff. They thought I'd have something really interesting to say. This is not all that interesting. So with that, I'll answer some questions.
Thank you very much. Before you answer the questions, can I say thank you for your honesty? I'm not going to repeat the particular phrase that you used to describe performance, but look, I don't think I've ever heard that level of honesty coming from the CEO. Back in the UK, our CEOs make mistakes, they try to blame other people, but let's not even go there. But thank you before we tackle the questions. Some of our CEOs...
Candor saves us all a lot of time.
Yeah, some of our CEOs, not all of them, some of them are absolutely wonderful. Okay, so some questions here. What is the one piece of advice you would give to someone starting out in insurance and who wants to climb the ladder?
Wow. Well, we started with the home run question. I think I would have a couple suggestions for you. Number one, keep plugging away. Number one, just keep plugging away. Number two, and it will be frustrating. We have this bizarre vocabulary in this business. It's really bizarre. So learn the vocabulary, and you're 90% of the way there. And here's a little secret for you. All that vocabulary is about dividing up $1. All it's telling you is who's getting what part of the dollar. That's it. That's kind of the secret sauce to insurance and the vocabulary. So the second thing I would say is build a network. This is probably not all that different than other advice anybody would give you. Over the years, I've had many colleagues in the industry, all different levels in different organizations, and all of them helped along the way, every single one. They all taught me something, so I would say build that network. And lastly, never be afraid to ask the question. I can tell you, I was a history major, and I went to law school, so that means I know absolutely nothing about finance. I taught myself everything I know about finance. And it was only because I had great CFOs and I asked a myriad, millions of dumb questions. And they had the patience to teach. So please never be shy or bashful. I can assure you that most people do want to help. They do want to teach. They do want to educate. If they don't waste your time with them.
Okay. Another question here. What is the answer to the brain drain of retiring experts, giving UWs and other roles technology to do more, or other ideas?
Can you say that one more time? I'm getting old, I can't hear.
What is the answer to the brain drain of retiring experts, giving UWs and other roles technology to do more, or other ideas?
So the brain drain is real. I think the answer is in this room with these people, the technologists. The marriage of data science, the tools that you're bringing to help underwriters, you're going to afford them the tools to make better decisions. Right now, it's a bit of an art form, right? So that's pretty hard to replicate. But if we can, on the margin, cut out some of the art and make it a little more scientific, I think we'll get a little more continuity of decision making. I think the capital will be allocated more efficiently and more effectively. And here's one thing that most people miss. I think if we can improve the underwriting just 1 or 2 points, just 1 or 2, it doesn't have to be monumental. The pricing stability for the consumer will be exponentially larger. Exponentially larger. And we won't have these wild, soft and hard markets, which are terrible for business and terrible for consumers. So I think it's largely going to be the brain drain is going to be the continued confluence of data science, and the insurance expertise that's left, And I think what will come out of the Python will be something really remarkable. I probably won't be around to see it, but I think it will be terrific for both the industry and society as a whole.
Okay, another question here. How can you attract more Gen Z to join the insurance industry, in brackets, make this industry appear less boring?
Well, so do you have time? Do I have time for one quick story?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so
we like stories here.
I had a young man come to us and was applying to be in our FP&A group, and he came out of a large firm, Duff & Phelps, and he was used to doing transactional work. And so we were talking to him about coming and being our head of FP&A, financial planning and analysis. And at the end of a day of interviewing, I said, so what do you think of the company? He said, I'm just not sure. I like the transaction environment. I like the intrigue, the suspense, the excitement, the energy of deals. And I said, well, that's kind of interesting because there's no more transaction and deal intensive environment than insurance. So I said, you're going to come with me. Before you make up your mind, please come with me. We're going to go to London. We have an office in London, right there at Lloyd's. And in fact, I easily throw a baseball to Lloyd's from the front of our office. And so we get there, and he's a little tired, but we're down at Lloyd's. And before we went in, we're walking down Leaden Hall. And I said, you see all these people out here? All these fellas and women in suits and dashing here and dashing there. He said, you see the folders they're carrying? He said, yeah, what's the big deal? I said, you know what's in those folders? He looked at me like I was crazy. He said, paper. I said, no, money. That's what's in those folders. These people, these young kids, are trading millions of dollars of risk every single day. We went into Lloyd's. They said, look around. You're in the last bastion of pure capitalism left on earth. Right here at Lloyd's. The last bastion of pure capitalism. A free trading environment. Buyers and sellers getting together to buy and sell risk. That's what we have to do. And I'll tell you what else helps. You, the technologists. You're making it an exciting career because we're going from a human-intensive business to a human-intensive business augmented by great technology. It's going to be a wonderful business to be in the not-too-distant future. It's a great business to be in now. But in terms of what the trajectory is, they're way down here at the rock and the wheel. And we're going to the microchip. So I think we just have to do a better job of explaining that.
Okay. Not a question, but I wish to say kudos on doing this. You surely seem to be a unicorn in the industry with your focus on employees and their engagement. Carriers have a great deal to learn from your philosophy. I think it's called a compliment.
Thank you very much.
Rick, thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Absolutely brilliant. Yep. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Oh, I'll take charge of that.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. I'll deliver it to the right quarters a little bit later on. But look, I think it's fair to say that was one hell of a presentation. A lot that was said that perhaps we weren't really expecting, but it shook us all. It got us thinking. That's what it's all about, looking into the future as well, to make sure that you can get the right people coming into the industry, but it is defining what is right, making sure that everybody shares the same purpose. Okay, let's move on now, because we're going to get a case study presentation, and it is delivered by Jake Soffer. Now, Jake is the CEO of Rolio.ai. Is that the correct pronunciation? Fantastic. Phew. Now, what Jake is going to be doing, he's going to be talking about how Rolio.ai is empowering employees to make data-driven decisions. So I'm going to sit back and get comfortable. I want you all to do the same, and welcome Jake Soffer to the stage. All yours, Jake.
You have to click it.
There you go.
Thank you. How do you explain when you use data to make a decision, but it doesn't go right? Or better yet, how do you explain when another organization, like a competitor, uses data and it always goes right, over and over and over? For example, Why does your competitor always know which products to sell, or what to price them at, or how to recruit people? You're both insurance companies. You have access to the same tools, resources, consultants. However, there seems to be a select few that are so good at using data. And it's not out of luck that they keep getting better at it every single year. There's something else at play here. And about 10 years ago, I stumbled upon this pattern. And I realized there's two things within this pattern when I did. One, these companies have way more data. Two, they have way better data. And when I realized this, it profoundly changed the way that I viewed what being data-driven meant and how I operate in a data-driven company today. I want to tell you exactly how I stumbled upon this. And then two, I want to show you how they actually do this, how some of these great companies actually get there. So in 2015, I was working in venture capital. And while we weren't in insurance, data was just as crucial to our decision making. That decision was what company to invest in. So I met with 300 startups. I read through 500 different pitch decks. And I drank 700 cups of coffee, all just to make one fancy PowerPoint suggesting to invest in one of these companies. And the firm listened to me. I was only 19. That's insane. They weren't listening to me. They were listening to the data. They weren't just listening to it, they were actually depending on it. So fingers crossed, it was enough data. But it wasn't just that. I had this feeling. I was excited. I was confident. I felt the same way we all feel when we're at home and we're staring at our E-Trade accounts and we think, oh man, this stock is going to the moon. But it wasn't just that feeling. My spreadsheet said this was going to be the next Facebook. Long story short, they weren't. The company flopped. But I didn't understand it because I did everything right. I used experience, intuition, and data. So I wondered, is this just a factor of the industry? Sometimes you're right, sometimes you're wrong. I learned it wasn't. I looked at our top competitors, and I mean just the top. And when I looked at them, I saw that they were making great decision after great decision after great decision at astonishing rates, and they kept getting better at it. So I looked even closer, and what I saw was they didn't sleep. They met with 10,000 startups. They read 20,000 pitch decks. They drank, I kid you not, 72,365.5 cups of coffee. It was the amount of data. How is it that Netflix continues to make hit after hit, Stranger Things, Ozark, my favorites, but Hulu's lucky if they make a good rom-com? It's because every single day, Netflix analyzes over 30 million plays just to understand what show to make, who to cast in it, and exactly how to market it to all of us. It's the amount of data. That's being data-driven, or at least that's part of it. So lesson learned, more data. But after this, I was on a short leash. I wasn't fired, but I couldn't screw up again. So I continued to look at those top companies, and I asked another question. What separates the #1 company from the #2 company? And not just in my industry, but any industry. Luckily at the time, I had a close friend and mentor to this day who has been a global sales leader at some of the most amazing companies, IBM, FPX, and many others. And one day he invites me down to his fancy office in New York, and I'm sitting in on his one-on-ones. And all of his salespeople come in one after another, like an assembly line, pointing out their pipeline. This deal's going to close. This one too. This one, 90% just needs this or that. All these meetings end, and he pulls out a list of every single deal discussed by every single rep. And one after another, he starts crossing them off. Gone, gone, gone. 70% of the deals in the trash. Didn't make sense to me. And I brought it up with my friend. These are some of the best salespeople. And they're not making this up. The data is in their CRM. They're pretty good at updating Salesforce. And he said, Jake, well, all this is true, and we have dozens of fields in our CRM that we need filled in for various reasons. We have 4 specific fields, 4 magic fields, that when they get filled in, they double the probability of a deal closing. They give our team the information we need to actually market to those prospects. Unfortunately, those 4 magic money-making fields only get filled in 30% of the time. So I asked my friend the obvious question. Well, why don't you just make everyone fill in those 4 fields all the time, or most of the time? He laughed, and he looked at me like I was crazy. There'd be mutiny. or worse, no data entry at all. For the last 10 to 15 years, we've all tried to solve this problem. Every single morning, Mr. or Mrs. CIO, CMO, VP gets out of bed, and they look at a report, and it tells them, more product data, revenue would go up. And of course, there's way more steps to get to that conclusion. Or another one that says, more customer details, and NPS scores increase. So what do? The obvious. They call ops and enablement and say, make it so. Huge returns, huge savings to be had. Get us that information. So what do ops and enablement do? They create a new project for the CRM team. You know, because 1 + 1 = 2. You simplify the CRM, you get the data. You want the data, make it simpler. I air quote new project because we do this every single year. We just call it something else. We either remove fields, we change layouts or reconfigure, automate, or we try to change behavior, training, incentivizing, reprimanding, and it never works. And every single year, we waste a ton of money, a ton of time, and a ton of resources. So my friend and his company, they realized this, and they just stopped. And they've settled for a pretty solid ROI at 30%. That's made them millions. But at the time, I was still young. I had half as many gray hairs and twice the imagination. So I asked, what if we could double that to 60%, 70, 80? Dare I say 90 to 100% of the time, we got the data that made us one of the top performing companies in our industry. We'd be the Michael Jordan of making data-driven decisions. This thing we want, we covet it, the best data, all of it from all of our users. It's expensive. We don't get enough of it, yet we pay so much for it. 200+ paid working hours to every CRM user we have. We can't ask them to double the entry. That'd be crazy. But we can't stop because we've seen this pattern to success, that the best organizations that are actually and truly data-driven, not just attempting to be, we've seen that they have the ability to make these winning decisions over and over and over consistently, and they keep getting better at it. I keep saying this 4-letter word, data, data, data. I sound like a parrot. It's not even my favorite 4-letter word. Use your imagination, can probably guess what it is. But we can't stop talking about it. It is so critical to our business. It's why we're all at this conference. But so are we. We are the master CMOs, CIOs, VPs that have the knowledge, expertise to be able to read that data, interpret it, and build an execution plan. But it's still the data that either corrects or directs that course. And it's not just frustrating because of the potentially massive returns or significant savings from getting the right data and getting it all the time from everyone. It's frustrating because of where we continue to invest. We continue to invest in these powerful machines of output, like CRM and BI, that are supposed to output these amazing insights and intelligence. Well, therein lies the problem. They were built for output. They were never built for human input. With Solonis and Salesforce and Tableau and analytics, we've all built the Ferrari of output, but we keep feeding it hay like it's a freaking horse. And you want to know what's crazy? We've already figured out how to solve this. Everyone in this room at an insurance company or financial services company has probably solved this. In fact, you've probably deployed it to your customers, and I've seen it work. These beautiful and intuitive human experiences. We don't show them a complex form with rules and errors. That'd be crazy. Quick poll. Please raise your hand if you work at a company that sells insurance. A lot of hands. Keep your hand raised, sorry, one more second, if you've ever bought insurance. Are you starting to see the point? At home, we see this. But at work to do data entry, it's like this, 15 to 20 hours out in the field. Or like this, at your desk, all day long. Does that dichotomy make any sense? If the same human beings that we've introduced to these human experiences, and they're now accustomed to it, are our CRM users, how can we possibly expect those people to walk back inside the 4 walls of an office and enter data the same way we have since 1980, by appeasing a machine? Up, down, left, error message, field by field by field. Expectations have changed, and they're never going back. And partly, we're to blame, but for good reason. And we've seen what a human experience can do. And fortunately, in 2016, I stumbled upon this. I was still working at the same firm, but with this insight, I decided to conduct an experiment. I locked myself in an office, and I allowed everybody else on my team, all the other partners, go do your meetings, go do your calls, go do your emails. And at the end, just text me or send me a voice note. And I updated Salesforce for them. My life was miserable. But they loved it. Data entry doubled, and the amount of time they spent manually updating Salesforce cut in half. And for the firm, that new level of efficiency completely cut our close cycles. And that influx of rich data and intelligence completely changed our level of success. All of a sudden, we were like the top performers. We were making great decision after great decision after great decision. And it wasn't luck that the firm eventually doubled in size and we were acquired. So, light bulb. Make data entry as simple as talking, and you will get the data that makes you the smartest person in the room. Or better yet, the smartest company in this room. And the icing on top, your users will love you for it. I mean, this is what we dream of, right? Or not dream, but this is why we continue to invest in these output systems, to see the future. Wake up every single morning and see where your company has been, where it is today, and where it needs to go. And we've seen the success of deploying a human experience. So, how do we bring this to our employees? Well, it's really easy. You all just hire me, underpay me, lock me in an office, and force me to update Salesforce for your entire company. But seriously, how do we build this? Well, a few attempts have actually been made. You could have your internals do it. But that is such an expensive waste of their time and your money. You could outsource it. Virtual assistants. That's even more expensive. It's not secure, and we still don't get good data. They don't know our business. They don't know our CRM, and they're doing this for 9 other companies. It's 2022. Artificial intelligence is incredible. I have a computer that can fit in my pocket, and to open it, I can just smile at it. And it smiles back and goes, "Yep, that's Jake." Isn't that amazing? If we can do that, why can't we make it so we can just talk to Salesforce to update it? Well, we can. And we figured it out, and we built it. Rolio, a human experience. Tap, text, speak. No more error messages, no 14 tabs and 29 clicks. Just talk. What we're doing right now, what you've trained your employees to be great at. We've been lucky enough to work with some amazing companies that we call customers in this industry. One of our favorites, Western and Southern Financial, an early adopter of this radical idea. Like everybody else for years, they tried the same 3 things. Remove fields, change layouts, automate, or try to change behavior. We showed them this. Within 60 days, the same size team was making 434 more customer calls per week, and we saw a huge influx of rich and high-quality customer and business intelligence being entered into their CRM on a daily basis. You have everything you need. In fact, it's an approach you've already deployed to your customers, human beings. We're saying, you've seen it work, just give it to your employees now. That is how we bridge the gap between this huge disparity of the experience expected by your CRM users, human beings, and the one we've been trying to force them to adopt for the last 10 to 15 years. And that's how you get your 4 magic fields in Salesforce filled in all the time, from everybody. One more thing, and then I'm done talking, and we can grab drinks. I know it's past 5. We've been talking about input, and that's amazing. Fueling these enterprise systems we continue to invest on and want to get so much out of. These systems, they output amazing insights and intelligence and analytics. But sometimes that data, that intelligence can be hard to find, no? So what if we could just ask that system, give me that report, build me that intelligence, give me that customer information. That's where we're headed next. Because this is the new enterprise UI, a UI that was actually built for people. The UI of truly data-driven companies. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that, Jake Sulfer. Okay, so time is marching on, so much to pack in the 20 or so minutes that are left to us. But look, we're going to move on to our final panel discussion, and the theme is From Employee Experience to Operational Strategy, Exploring the Future of Work. We've got 4 excellent speakers. Can you please welcome them to the stage? Hugh Newton-Hill, please come and join me. Justin Gress, come on guys, applause. Beth Schmidt, do I have to remind you of everything? And Amir Farid, please come and join me. I'll just move this out of the way. There are no presentations. Please, take a pew, all of you.
I should have gone that side.
Yep. No need to stand on ceremony. We're amongst friends here. It's good to see you all. Let's start with some introductions. Hugh Newton-Hill, great to see you. Can you tell the audience what it is you do and for whom?
Absolutely. So my name's Hugh. I lead the fantastic Attenzi team in the US. At Attenzi, we build capabilities and change behaviors at scale for many of our customers. We work with the likes of Hiscox, Zurich, American National on a range of topics. We love to be challenged with ideas. We'll talk a bit about more the platform that we have. So if you have ideas on how you can build capabilities using games, we would love to hear them at the end.
Okay, fantastic. Justin.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Justin Gress. I'm Chief Operating Officer of Vantage Insurance. Vantage is a class of 2020 insurance and reinsurance startup based in Bermuda in the US. We've got over 9 insurance product lines to date, with more on the way.
Okay, Amir.
So first of all, give them a big hand for them still being here.
Well, look, we're going to applaud you. You don't have to applaud
I was
yourselves,
expecting
okay?
fewer. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you and with this team panel. I work for Westfield Group of Companies. I serve as the Chief Operating Officer as well as the Chief Transformation Officer, with direct operational as well as all transformational accountabilities across all commercial line segment, and that includes our small business, middle market, farm owners, as well as our large commercial ag. I also have the P&L responsibility for all segments across commercial lines.
Okay, and Beth.
Hi, everybody. I'm Beth Schmidt, and I work for Markel Corporation. We're a holding company and a specialty insurer headquartered out of Richmond, Virginia. I'm actually from Omaha, Nebraska myself, and I'm the Director of IT Delivery and Agile Operations.
Okay then, so look, thank you all for being here. And again, as if you need reminding, we will take questions at the end of this panel. So please, you know what to do. Use the app, get the questions ready, and we'll try to get through as many of them as we can in the time available. So we'll start things rolling really by putting a question to all of you. So let's follow this direction. We'll start first with you. But look, it is safe to say that the pandemic did disrupt working practices, habits, etc., etc. So how are you seeing the employee experience changing within that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I was actually in London at the time, so we had very, very strict lockdowns. But one thing we've seen across the board is the missed opportunity of this learning through osmosis. That's something that we talk about a lot with our clients. It's that conversation at the water cooler. It's hearing objection handling from a colleague next to you. It's that 2 seconds of feedback at the end of the call. You could have pitched it slightly differently. And we're losing that now when people are working at home. So what we've seen is companies investing significantly in the talent development space, really around this practical, experiential-based learning. So that's been quite exciting. I think another area is really around the support for employees and ensuring that they feel, I loved the discussion we had earlier, that they feel engaged. And that's another area that we're working on significantly.
Okay, Justin.
So Vantage was born during COVID, so we had to build a culture and a team completely virtually. So we didn't even have our first office until really several months into being a company. So we had to continue to find ways, we still continue to find ways to engage our colleagues virtually. We have a Monday call. Our CEO leads the call every single Monday. He doesn't miss it no matter where he is in the world. We introduce all of our new colleagues that day, and on Fridays we have a Vantage Connect where you get paired with a colleague randomly and you spend 15 minutes with them, which frankly has been fantastic from a networking perspective and has really allowed us to develop our own identity in a time that we are now connecting a lot in person, but has allowed us to create a culture and identity very quickly during a virtual time.
Okay, Amir.
So pandemic not only drastically changed, but also further accelerated the working habit and the working experience for all involved across all industry, including our own industry. And I believe digital dexterity has a lot to do with making that happen. And if the term is new, the digital dexterity in its simplest form, it's an individual's or a group's ability to adopt technology. But it's not just about technology. It's about the beliefs. It's about the agile mindset. It's about the behaviors. You put it all together, that's the world we are in. There was a research done just 4 years ago by Gartner, and they concluded with that research that at that point in time, only 18% of the organizations have digital dexterity, 18%. Fast forward to now, Harvard just completed a study where they were looking at the hybrid models and the working experiences and the behaviors and the different working models. 90% of mid-sized organizations or greater have some level of hybrid model and different working arrangement now in place. That's a stark difference between the two. So as we think about the evolution, as we think about the experiences, think about the digital dexterity with technology, beliefs, mindset, and agility in mind, and you can turn it into competencies and now start to get your workforce ready very, very differently. That's what we are seeing, and that's what we are applying in our disciplines and practices at the competency level.
Okay, Beth.
Yeah, so I think one of the things that was most challenging for people during that time was, missing out on the sense of camaraderie with the team members. I had an interesting conversation with a coworker about culture and how do you maintain or build a culture, in a virtual environment. And it's different. It can be done, but it has to be very intentional. So I think, there were just some interesting things that occurred. We really tried to encourage everybody to use video conferencing during that time so we could still be as much face-to-face as possible. But it was interesting to me how many people didn't do it and still don't do it. And it did occur to me, I think the reason why most people don't do it is not because they don't want to be seen, but because they don't like seeing themselves, right? You're not used to looking at yourself all day long. So anyway, I'm not quite sure how to overcome that yet, but we did some fun things to try to build and maintain, have some fun as a team virtually, but it's been a challenge.
Absolutely, because there are some people who are still working remotely. So given that, how do you encourage productivity? And at the same time, can you measure it?
Yeah, the way we traditionally thought about productivity, we got to change our way of how we think about productivity. So if I take us back to the digital dexterity again for a second, we got to think about our business model differently. Building a digital enabled business model is different than having a digital business model. And we got to think about that with a human element in mind. So when it comes to the human, what we are all trying to do is digitally enable that human touch. And then once you have the competencies and the practices that are tied to it, now you can measure productivity differently. For us, there are 3 horizons. In its simplest form, we start with digital enablement and then digital collaboration. And then you measure and monitor progress against the same, that horizon 1. Your second horizon is embedded intelligence, and then starting to take it to intelligent automation, and how it changes the roles and the people that are part of the workflow in that construct. That's horizon 2. And then horizon 3 is augmented intelligence with automation, and how you measure productivity against the same. So once you change the mindset and you start to input beliefs, behaviors, and agility into the construct of your workflow, you start to measure the same very differently.
Okay, then let's follow on from that. I want to put this to Justin and Hugh. How does the nature of support in itself actually need to evolve so that employees, well, really to help them in that virtual and hybrid environment, the employees, I mean, how should they be supported?
Yeah, a great question. And I think it's looping back to what I was saying around that, the learning through osmosis. I think that is a key area. And one of the stories I guess I'll tell is from our work with Hiscox Insurance. underwriting, I've never been an underwriter myself, so I had to learn a lot about this industry, but I always hear that it's art and not a science. And you need to have gone through these experiences, made these decisions, seen what the results were, and then adjust. And what Hiscox have done to enable their underwriters to develop more quickly is to develop the world's first underwriting simulator. And we can show you what that looks like if you come to the booth, but it's a really exciting opportunity for underwriters to practice these decisions like they would be doing with their chief underwriting officer, but they're doing it in a virtual environment, doing it in a safe environment, learning through experience. And we've seen that concept of giving people this opportunity to practice in a safe environment and build confidence for all areas of the business.
Okay, and Justin?
So we had to give our underwriters the tools they need to do their jobs wherever they're going to do their jobs. So we hire talent wherever the talent may live. We want to hire the best talent there is, regardless of their location. So that's been our strategy from a technology standpoint as well, is delivering technology and an experience that's going to be consistent whether you're in an office, you're in your house. We've been big users of WeWork and Industrious, bringing people together when it counts to collaborate. So when we need to meet in person, we meet in person. When it makes sense to be remote, we're sometimes remote.
But then how can you identify where those employees actually need the support so that you can go about strengthening it in those areas?
So, for today, it's great to be a smaller company, right? Because we have a ton of connectivity, through the obvious ones like everybody has through Microsoft Teams. We have multiple ways that we deliver every message. So that is one way. So there's multiple ways also to deliver messages back in terms of something is not working from a service component perspective. But frankly, being a specialty lines carrier, we've really focused more on, of course, the customer, which is both broker and our end customer, the insured, but also providing our underwriters and claims folks the tools they need to do their jobs, and then regularly checking in with them and regularly having working groups around improving those as we go. And and I'm not an IT person, but I'll use the word agile. So the days of, I remember the first time I ever worked on an IT project, you'd work for 90 days or 180 days, and you'd wait another 180 days and see something back. Now we're seeing something back later that day or overnight. So getting that direct feedback and having that through even our service loop of what's working, what's not is extremely important right now.
Okay, let's broaden things out because, look, we've referenced it in some of the earlier conversations, and this is really the blended human and digital workforce. It's become a reality for many people now. It will continue to be that way going forward. Again, a question to all of you. What do these look like at your respective companies, blended, the human and digital? And where are you seeing this concept being utilised most effectively? Can I start with you, Amir, and then move it around?
Yeah, so in the insurance value chain, we simply broke it down into 3 components: pre-core, post-core, and then core. And there is an element of digitization that enables the human touch in all. And we picked the one that moves the biggest needle. So from a lead management standpoint, what it looks like from a pipeline perspective. How can you build augmented intelligence where not only you are taking a lead and turning it into target accounts, but you are also starting to provide some favorability indexes that says, here are the 100, here are the first 10 I want you to go after because of my appetite to write that business. Now what you just did, you just brought the entire workflow to life and you empower that individual at the point of sale. Apply the same level of digital thinking in the enablement of their workflow, and we work across the insurance value chain. So that's just one example.
Sure. Beth?
I'm trying to make sure I understand a question about the human and digital blend. Mm-hmm. Are you talking about the tools that we're allowing the employees to leverage? Okay.
So it's using the tools, so how it can effectively, make the humans efficient, so to speak, but the one doesn't overwhelm the other. It's striking that balance.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. It's been interesting because we have had to deploy a lot more digital tools just because of the environment has sort of demanded it. So, I think it does require a lot more, interaction with the humans to make sure that they understand how to leverage the tools and I am an IT professional, so looking for ways that we can, provide the right tools at the right time so that people are doing, the right things. It doesn't take away from their jobs, but it enhances them. So it's, there's been a lot of learning in that.
An ongoing process, basically.
Yeah.
Justin.
So we started with no technology and no renewal base. So we started from zero. So it's a real exciting opportunity to build technology from scratch the way that we felt that our underwriters, them participating in the process, could give them the tools they needed to do their jobs. So all of our data feeds into one data lake, feeds into one environment, which is amazing because I've never had that before anywhere I've worked. So I can actually go into a broker with my laptop, turn it around, and go, here's our results with you, and we actually all agree. It's amazing. So a lot of legacy carriers are working to get to the cloud or working to get to where we're at. And frankly, the most simple digital tool we have, our underwriting dashboard, it's just our results by broker, by person. It is the most powerful tool one could have because it's accurate, it's timely, it helps us from where are we going from a target account perspective, where do we need to be spending time, and frankly that's what a growing company needs first and foremost.
And Hugh.
Yeah, I got two lenses on this, I guess. Internally, what we've done, and this might be a new technology to many in the room, or maybe not, is Unity is a game development engine, and what we've done is built a layer on top of that, the no-code, low-code environment, and it's just amazing because what we've done by doing that is we've unlocked the potential of game designers and game writers to bring fantastic experiences to our clients, and that I think is like separating those skill sets. Like our coders would be shocking at writing narrative and our game designers would be shocking at coding simulations, but when you can separate those and get them into a position where they can use their skill set, it's really exciting. The second thing I would say is referencing Bobby Joe, what she said earlier. I think it was something along the digitize the ordinary and humanize the exceptional. I think we do get into a risk when you are automating a lot and putting a lot of processes and simplifying, but also it's still a process. Sometimes the human can feel disenfranchised in that situation.
Yeah.
And I think we really need to help the humans in those interactions understand what's expected of them, and then give them the skill sets and the capabilities, because oftentimes it's changed. You used to do this manual process, now we want you to go be the empathetic person who needs to go through this claim experience. Well, we need to give you the tools to do that as well. So I think there a lot of potential, but also we need to be conscious of some of the risks.
Yeah, and let's stick with this, Beth, because look, you said that this is a work in progress, really, about the tools and the humans, the interaction, etc. But how do you see the work of the employees actually evolving in that automated environment? Because you know what? You're not going to obliterate the human completely, but at the end of the day, the human needs to feel valued in the process, and that his or her contribution is not going to be denigrated because of that relationship with technology.
Yeah, and I mean, I think, you kind of hit on it, helping employees understand that we want to use their minds for the things that are actually of higher value. The more mundane, repetitive types of tasks can be easily automated so that we're really making better use of their skills and allowing them to do the things that are more challenging and therefore should be more fulfilling.
And again, broadening things out, Justin, come in on this, because look, we're talking about digital and how you can integrate it with the workforce, but at the same time, it does impact on customers as well. You can't really remove them from the equation. We do generate the money after all, but how do you actually blend human and digital effectively when you're actually dealing with customers as well?
So our strategy as a specialty lines carrier is to just deliver a superior product. Frankly, we're not doing chatbots. We're not. There are many places for many wonderful technologies that are out there, and we are adopting a lot of different technologies. First and foremost, from what can we do to empower our underwriters to make better decisions, okay? Which does impact our customers 100% in terms of providing them with a policy that provides them with the proper coverage that they need. Also educating our broker force in terms of what we feel is appropriate as a partner. But we also don't want to get into the business of giving them another portal and another password to remember. Whether it's your personal or your professional life, we have too many passwords to remember. So we're taking the strategy of being very efficient in what we're delivering and providing for a superior experience consistently, and not looking to try to solve for the technology angle with the, that one component. It's more about utilizing the data analytics we do have to our advantage, the underwriting process, and then sharing it that way.
I mean, Hugh, from your perspective, what do you see as the big challenges within the human and digital combination? Because everybody talks about the virtues, but nothing is ever straightforward. There are downsides which perhaps for some businesses are a little bit alienating.
Yeah, I think Beth, you hit it on the head there. Like, we assume that the narrative around the automation, automating different processes and taking off the mundane work is what the workforce wants. Like, I sat on the stage here, we're like, okay, people want challenging tasks. They want to have to use their brain, and we know that it will be empowering, but we forget that that's a massive change for them. And we don't go on that journey with them. I mean, part of what we do is a component of that, on building those skills, building those capabilities in a safe environment. But there's so much more that goes to the culture, the communication, the leadership strategies that can embed that. So I think that is the big risk, is alienating your existing workforce. And I've had a couple discussions today. Like, the new generations coming in are, they've always communicated over virtual channels, and they aren't necessarily as good as at relating to some of the broader generations or the broader employee base.
The demographics, of course, the age demographics and experience as well. But I mean, look, Beth, the reality is that a lot of us will continue to work from home, even when COVID is completely obliterated, if that's ever going to happen, or there are variants which are perhaps less dangerous. But given that, for the people working from home, obviously there is learning to work with those technology tools, but at the same time there is the issue of security. So what I'm getting at is, what is it that has to be put in place to make sure that security is not compromised when you've got workers who are operating from home? They've also got these tools, these new technology tools that they've got to absorb. Oh, and by the way, make sure that you protect the customer's data, because if you don't, then you will be liable for the failure.
I mean, I guess at Markel, I think we already had a lot of things in place. In fact, the switch over from being in office to being remote happened very quickly, and it was really pretty smooth. So we were kind of fortunate in that regard, and I think it's because we're already very distributed, so we had to have some of that present, or those capabilities anyway. But we have made some changes and increased security in some areas. Certainly, I think we've all seen a lot more training in kind of the do's and don'ts at working out of a Starbucks and using a public Wi-Fi and things like that. We're deploying for some folks a Microsoft managed device and allowing them to sort of work offline, off network, with some of the right tools there. But yeah, I think there's a lot of it's really been around training, how to make sure that you're secure when you're not in the office. It's much easier to control in that environment, but once people are working from really anywhere, you just have to make sure that employees understand the risks, how to securely use your devices, what to do and what not to do in public places, even in terms of conversations or leaving your laptop on a table. Sure. And so, I mean, there's physical security and there's, device security and all those things to be concerned about.
But look, either which way, what the digital world has done is that it's actually shown that there are massive implications for the skills that employees need to take on board. So a question which I'm going to throw out to all of you, but again, if I can start first with you and then move it around. I mean, what is it that needs to be done to attract more digital and technological talent? Because we heard from the opening address there, people quite like the idea of joining the FANGs because it's more sexy, it's more attractive, and perhaps you don't have the same sort of constraints that you'd have in the insurance sector. Yeah,
I think it's a big communication point. I think a lot of, reiterating what was said earlier today, that there is so much potential ahead of us in the industry to make massive leaps and bounds, and you can be part of that journey. I think what we are seeing is that companies are getting better at taking risk-based judgments. I think that's something that's been really beneficial out of COVID, that there's not just this blanket no to working from home or having some data on a personal device or something like that. So I think that's a big feature. And one thing that's really struck me being here today is really the purpose of the industry. I think that's something that isn't very well communicated. Your interactions with your insurers in your personal capacity can sometimes be quite transactional, and that's what you see the industry as, where actually there's this broader purpose that could be communicated, and I think a lot of people would get behind that.
Justin.
So we've done a pretty good job of attracting some awesome data and analytics folks at Vantage, and we've done it through exposing them to our culture. That is what it's all about in terms of when they come into interview. We have a very efficient interview process, and we talk a lot about what it's like to work at Vantage, what it's to be part of the Vantage DNA, and it either sells them or it doesn't. But frankly, we've done a good job so far with that.
Amir.
So one, having the ability to work wherever they are has opened doors for many to be part of this industry in any geographical location. That's number one. Number two, all of us, we need to talk about our industry differently. We are doing exciting stuff, just the things that you just talked about, right? Why we need to talk about it in the context of insurance? This is the same exciting stuff that they are doing in other places. We got to make insurance sexy, right? We really got to think about the solution, the things that they have the opportunity to develop and grow. These are transferable skills that they can take to any industry and apply everything that you just talked about. You can do it in any industry. It has nothing to do with just insurance. We just got to change the context. And the last two items, which your leader shared it very, very well. It all comes down to coaching and engagement, how we engage with those individuals and how we show interest, true interest in developing those individuals with an eye on tomorrow.
And Beth.
Yeah. So I was going to say pretty much the same thing. I think sometimes people don't understand just the variety of different types of jobs that are available in an insurance company. I mean, they all think it's actuaries and underwriters, and you know, we need all sorts of different.
It's a very Dickensian image, isn't it?
I know. So I think, again, just exposing all of the wonderful job opportunities in the industry. That, again, it's really doesn't matter that it's insurance. There's all these exciting jobs, and I think also just the fact that insurance companies do help people, I think that resonates with the younger generation as well. So.
Okay then. I mean, look, I want to close things out now because I'm conscious that we are nearing the end of the session. We have had a question which has come through, but I think basically you guys have answered it, unless you actually want to put another spin on it, so I'm just going to throw it out there. But it is basically, what do insurers need to do to win the increasingly competitive race for talent and new skills? I mean, you have answered it, but then I guess the other side to this is, well, look, you've got people, how do you retain them? Because again, there is that worry, isn't there, that you get the right people, as Rick said, you train them, you invest in them, they say, great, fantastic, bye. So how do you keep them?
You know, I think you really do have to pay a lot closer attention to engaging with employees and the culture. By the way, have you all heard the story about, you know, the concern about training people and they leave, and the flip side of that is, what if you don't and they stay, right? That's a worse scenario. So anyway.
Yeah, I'll say don't sell them the insurance role. Sell them the development platform. Don't hire for open position. Hire for talent and create opportunities for those talent, and they will evolve very, very differently.
I think some of our, and I'll say very plainly, our younger talent, those that have graduated in the last several years, exposing them to the concept that you mentioned around that our industry is built around helping people and businesses be made whole is very attractive to that particular group of people. And I think as they get to understand what we do, there is a real sense of purpose, and there is a real sense of loyalty then once they understand that their role in our business is to help. And you know, I find then there to be a much higher retention with that group once they make that specific connection that this isn't just a job, but it's you know, truly something special.
Yeah, I think I'd underline the coaching point that was made earlier, but I would take a slightly different spin on it. I think it's the coaching that we're seeing being promoted by many different organizations, is really trying to understand the individual drivers behind each individual and not saying, here's your roadmap. This is what you need to, at some stage, get to that, but it needs to start with, what do you want to do? What are your motivations? What, how can we create a journey for you? And getting people to take ownership then of their own journey. And it's really hard to do as a manager, because you want to sit and you want to problem solve. And okay, you're struggling with this. This is how I did it when I joined the industry 40 years ago. And that's not what this generation wants. They really want to be able to craft their own journey and sort of take on their own purpose. So I think coaching is going to be a core skill to retain talent, and it is quite different from management.
Okay, thank you so much for that. A great way on which to end this session, this discussion, the session for the day. Thank you so much. Absolutely brilliant.